we did a job in Afghanistan. We'd killed a guy. Well, he had tried to kill a friend of mine, so he was now dead. And his companion had run off into a compound. And the troop boss gave the orders, and it was very simple, you know, surround this complex of compounds with overwatch, so teams that would stop anyone from escaping. And then one team had to go in. Guess whose team? You guys. Aha, I got the job. And so we've got a bit of ground to cover. We've got 200 meters. I've got the team in dead ground. I've just given my orders and said, this is how this is going to work. And nice and casual, because we're about to go into a building to find a guy and kill him or capture him. And he's armed. And so, yeah, that's a moderately stressful situation.
Today, I have a very special guest with me, Adam O'Donnell, who has a remarkable story to share. Adam is not only a successful IT executive, but also a veteran of the SAS, the elite special forces unit of the British and Australian armies, of which he served for over 10 years. He has served in some of the most dangerous and demanding missions around the world, from Bosnia to Afghanistan, from Tibet to Africa. He has faced life-threatening situations such as being charged by elephants, falling from a plane, and defending a remote outpost against 400 Taliban fighters. He has also climbed Mt Everest, learned several languages, and trained as a parachutist, paramedic, demolitionist, and close combat specialist. Adam is now a speaker, mentor, and facilitator who helps leaders and teams thrive in the complex and disruptive world of today. He shares his insights and lessons from his military and corporate careers and shows how to apply the principles of excellence, resilience, and leadership that he has learned in the SAS. In this video, we will talk to Adam about his amazing journey, in his challenges and achievements, his secrets to success, his advice for anyone who wants to follow their dreams to make a difference. So without further ado, let's welcome Adam O'Donnell to the show. Welcome, Adam.
Oh, thank you, Goran. Oh, that sounds impressive, doesn't it?
Man, that's an amazing introduction. We'll get to the elephant one, but that's the one I have to ask. That's
That was a good story,
yeah.
Definitely.
How did it start? Why the military? What was your...
I think I was attracted initially. I joined as a young soldier, 17 years old. I joined the infantry reserve, and that's whenever I was first introduced to the camaraderie, that feeling of connection, that feeling of being part of something. And then my career went a different way. I went off to went to university and didn't really enjoy that. Didn't enjoy academia, so left. I found myself in IT. Yeah, paid well, but didn't really have the same kind of, just didn't have that same buzz. And it was actually my brother's fault. My brother he was a medical officer in the British Army, and he happened to do an exercise many years ago with a unit called 23 SAS. So that they're one of the 2 reserve units in UK Special Forces. And I got a call saying, I've just met the most amazing bunch of blokes, and I think I've got the job for you. And I looked into it more, and I found out that there was a unit called 21 SAS, about 10 k's from where I lived. And I thought, the stars have aligned. Yeah. So I got myself an application form, filled it in, and forgot all about it. Until about 6 months later, I get a call, a very cryptic call, from this very business-like voice saying, Mr. O'Donnell, be at this location with full PT kit at this time. Hung up. That was it. I thought, all sounds a bit mysterious, a bit cloak and dagger. And I turned up, and there was about 20 of us. And it's all very casual. We knew instantly who the staff were. The way they talked to each other, the way they carried themselves. And I just thought at that point, this is the gang I want to be part of. It was casual but respectful. It was deferential but not. There was no class. It was an equal. There were equals. Yeah. And I thought, yeah, this is it. And off we went on a run, and as the kilometres ticked over, more and more people dropped off the end, and I just thought, yeah, I'll be here whenever you finish. Yep. And that was my introduction to 21 SAS. The rest, that's a whole different story. We can get into that if you want.
Yeah,
But yeah, there was just that feeling of, yeah, this feels like home.
So you found like your purpose in a sense.
Yeah, well, I think the purpose came later. It was more that I found my people.
Okay.
I found that group of people that I just thought,
I want to be a part of this.
I want to be a
Yeah,
part of
there's
this.
something about this.
Yeah.
I really want to understand it.
Knew nothing about it at that point.
Yeah.
But I just thought, yeah, I want to.
And then from that point, you got enlisted. You went through the training, or
Yeah. So a little bit of history first of all. So 21 SAS. If you've seen any of the shows, the SBS online
Yes.
online show about the
selection.
formation of the SAS, they were formed in the desert back in the days of the Second World War, and so that was one SAS regiment. Then there was a second, two SAS regiment. We don't make things complex.
Okay.
But there's a lot of these irregular special units being formed during the war, and like most of them, they were disbanded at the end of the war. And then someone thought they're actually quite useful guys to hang around. So they were the men from 1 and 2 SAS were taken and put into a convenient holding regiment, which they thought, what are we going to call it? I know, we'll call it 21 SAS, sort of 2 and the 1 reversed. Yeah. There was a few operations, Malaya and a few others, and then at some point someone thought, we actually need more than just a reserve component, we need a full-time unit. Okay. What are we going to call it? Well, we've got 21 SAS, let's call it 22. Yep. Again, we keep things simple. Yeah. And then they formed another unit. We thought, what do we call that? Yep. I know, 23.
So it just keeps on going up.
Yeah, so 21 and 23 are the reserve units. The way the selection process worked, after you went through the initial sort of weeding out run, just to make sure that you had a level of resilience and you were ready to face the rigors of the course, we spent the next 4 months just doing nothing but PT. So my civilian work at that time was in IT. It changed completely. I completely altered my entire life to fit around my training regime. I was doing 2 or 3 fairly intense workouts a week, at least two runs with weight, a 40-pound sandbag that I kept for many, many years after selection, even give it a name. And that was my little mascot. And if I wasn't doing that, I was at Watership Down in the southeast of England. I spent the day, literally a day, walking up, walking down, walking up, walking down with 40 pounds of sand on my back. That was just to get ready for the course. Then the course itself, in the full-time 22 SAS, they do it over a period of weeks. We do it over a period of months at weekends. So I would finish my job. I would then get on a 4-ton lorry, a large lorry. We'd drive for about several hours over to Wales. We'd get there at stupid o'clock in the morning. We'd get about 2 hours sleep. We'd be up and we'd then be running around the Brecon Beacons with about 50 pounds of weight on our backs for about 10, 12 hours. Get a few hours sleep. We'd then go off and do a night navigation exercise, again with weight. We'd come back, get a few more hours sleep, and then into a battle PT, which is just like fireman's carries, just a lot of running, a lot of lifting, a lot of carrying. And that went on for months. And then we went on to what's called test week, and that's it's a shared component with the full-time and reserve components. And that's just purely you and your rucksack and a deactivated dummy weapon against the clock and the hills. And you just get dropped off at a location. You're told where you are, and you're told your next location is there. Any questions? Go. And that's it. There's no feedback, there's no motivation, it's just you and the hills. And you've got to cover the distance at a certain speed, regardless of the terrain, the weather, the season, whatever. It's just, you've got to get from there to there to there to there. It's the equivalent of doing a marathon every day.
Wow.
For, you do 4 days, then there's a slight rest day, in that it's not quite so, the hills aren't quite so high. And then you're into the big one, which is 24 hours endurance, and it's a loop, so from there to the far side of the hills, back again.
Wow.
Again, you're carrying, I think by that point, 55 pounds, plus food, plus water, plus everything else. And at that point, you finished the first phase.
And are you by yourself, or
Have
they teamed you up with
no,
a
you're
couple
by
of guys?
yourself.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Absolutely, by yourself the entire time. So you have to be very good at navigation. Obviously, fitness comes into it, but it's a really simple process because you're given the directing staff or DS. They'll you confirm where you are. They'll tell you where you've got to get to next, and if you don't make it in time, there's only two reasons: you don't want to, or you can't.
Yeah, wow.
And if you don't want to, we don't need you, we don't want you. And if you can't, we don't want you, we don't need you, off you go.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. And we're looking for the man who will quite literally crawl on his hands and knees to get to the next checkpoint on time. We're not looking for excuses. We're not looking for I've got blisters, I've got a sore back. We're just looking for the guy who gets on with it.
So the results, no reasons, right? It's just the results.
No excuses, just get there. Simple as that.
But how do you, and I know you're going to go through the rest of it, but mentally, how do you, everything in life you need a reason, right? People won't do anything unless there's a reason behind it, or there's a purpose, or there's a vision, or something you got to get to, right?
Yep.
So how do you push yourself mentally and physically to that extreme?
It's a good question. There are some who can't.
Okay.
Or I think it's actually a case of there are some who won't.
Okay.
Because I'd love to say I had this grand notion of eventually serving my country with men that I respected and so on.
Yep.
That's complete crap. It wasn't that. At some point, when you have been walking for 20 hours, every single fiber of your being, every muscle is sore, your shoulders have gone numb, you've lost contact with your fingers, and you've got blisters on blisters. All that stuff kind of fades away. And there is just there's just this voice within your head that just says, one more step, one more step, one more step. You go from, your event horizon shortens. You go from, I'm going to pass selection, to I'm going to survive this particular day, to I'm going to get to the next checkpoint, to I'm going to get to that little bit of ground over there, to one more step. And it's that. For example, Admiral McRaven talks about make your bed. Great talk. Brilliant talk. But just doing one little thing, and that one little thing can just be take one more step in the right direction. And sometimes that step can be, literally at one point I was when I finished endurance, I was walking up this what looked like the side of a house, this huge mountain. Probably wasn't that big in retrospect, but I was 6-inch steps. That's all I could do. My hips were in agony, and I was just one more step. Didn't have to be a very big step, but just one more step, and you just winch your way up. That's how you get results. Just that small action after just repeated.
Just keep on repeating.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because I was watching a documentary, and the person got lost from the platoon. So I think it was a she or a he, I can't remember what it was, by themselves. And anyway, survived 3 or 4 days in a desert. So there was no way to survive. No food, no water, no support, nothing like that. And when they did find this person, they asked, how did you survive? This was, you've gone against all odds. It was purely just one step at a time. Focused on moving the left leg, then focused on the right leg, left leg, right leg, and eventually over time, got to where they needed to be, by not giving up.
And it's just, I believe that voice exists within all of us. But I also believe that there's another voice which shouts it down, because sometimes that voice can be a whisper. And I think, like everyone, I had a moment where I contemplated what's called VW, voluntary withdrawing, quitting. I think most people have a moment where they think, stuff this. And at one point, I had a plan to get myself medically withdrawn. I was going to break my leg. I was going to put my leg down a rabbit hole and break it. And I remember looking for the right rabbit hole. And that voice was just going, nah, keep going. Nah, keep going. And it was momentary. But at that point, whenever I heard that little voice just going, nah, keep going, that's whenever I knew I had it beat. I had it beat.
So that's what you needed, that little flame.
I just needed that little voice to go, nah, keep going.
Good. Yeah, incredible. I mean, I've watched the selection process on YouTube. I think
Yeah.
the SAS Australia did a
Yeah,
national
they did,
segment
yeah.
many years ago. And, you know, they start off with whatever is 100, couple hundred people or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And then just watching that whole journey and process towards the end. And I don't know how people mentally can push through, and because some of the tasks are team-based, right? So it doesn't matter how strong you are or how capable or how mentally strong you are, you're reliant on the rest of them.
Yeah, the British system is a bit different. The first section is purely individual.
Okay.
In fact, if you're caught walking with another candidate, you'll be either separated or, you know, at the worst case is binned, as in chucked off the course. Okay. But no, it's totally
they're really
individual.
just- yep.
So interestingly, so my course, so we, you know, you've got to assume that the people on the course
Yep.
have passed that initial run that I talked about earlier
Yes.
on. They passed that. So we threw out, we probably discard 15%, but we don't even let them onto the course. Then there's natural attrition. So by the time it comes to the hills phase, we've got about, I think we had about 130, 140. There's a big course.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of blokes. And the chief instructor, I remember he was a veteran of a lot of different operations, very well respected individual. And he stood there and he said, you know, believe me guys, I would love to take every single one of you. The amount of work we've got on, we need as many people as we can get. But he said, I know from experience that we will probably take 11 of you. And I thought, I wonder who the other 10 will be.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a level of arrogance that I'm not entirely happy with, but
Yeah, yeah. So
but-
your visualization,
yeah.
right? You visualize yourself
I'm literally
as
just
being
going,
part of
yeah,
it.
I wonder who
Yep.
the other 10 will be. And he was wrong. He didn't take 11, they took 13.
Okay.
That's how many passed.
Wow. Out of how many start compared to the end. But even in what I watched, even that if you pass the course, doesn't mean you're going to get selected, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
My friend, I won't name him, but he and I started the course together. And we went through the entire course, and the final test exercise, he made a bit of a stuff up, and I won't say what it was. It's a share his blushes if he ever listens to this.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of a,
Okay.
dude. But it wasn't the end of the world.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And so he got what's called a stand-up fail. So you're still standing up at the end of the course,
Okay.
but you're a fail.
Okay.
And he had to go back and do the whole thing again.
Sure.
So that was a big effort on
Did
his
he
part.
pass at the end?
He did.
Yeah,
we
good,
ended up we served together for many years.
Okay.
Incidentally, we also had a guy. There used to be a policy that if you ever voluntarily withdrew, if you put your hand up and said that's it, not going any further,
Yeah.
you couldn't get a second chance. If directing staff took you off the course, you could. If we thought if we let you continue, you're going to die.
Yeah.
That's just a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
So you could be taken off the course. Okay. If your leg had an extra joint,
Yeah.
you know, because it was broken, we would take you off the course.
Okay.
Or we could.
Yeah.
And so this one guy, he got all the way through the hills to the final test week, and he voluntarily withdrew on, I believe, day 3. And I thought, oh well, see you, mate. It was nice. It was nice knowing you.
Yeah.
All the best. Have a good life. And I'd been serving for probably 3 years, and I saw him again back on selection. And I think he read my face, because I thought, what are you doing here? Because you know, there were no second chances for quitters.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, they changed the policy, I'm getting another go. And I saw him again at the end of test week, and I said, oh, how'd you get on? He goes, I quit at almost the same spot, almost the same grid reference, almost the exact same spot.
Oh, so you just couldn't push through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. We've got a lot of people that watch the channel that are from overseas, so let's say US and other countries. For those that don't know, what does the SAS stand for?
The SAS stands for the Special Air Service.
Okay. And that's the elite of the elite from the British Special Forces.
Yeah, look, I do struggle a little bit with this whole concept of elite. I prefer to think of us as a bunch of misfits who fit together.
Okay, cool.
And we do a job that is that requires a certain personality, a certain skill set. Does it mean we're better than anyone else? I struggle with that. I really do. I think we are better at some things than others. I think we do a job that requires a certain skill set and mindset. So yeah, we're good at that.
Yeah, but specialists, right?
We're specialists, yeah. But does it mean we're an elite? You know, I struggle with that as a concept. I think you know, people may say that, but certainly when it comes to certain tasks, you don't want the SAS. You want a battalion of very well trained infantry. Or armored, or armor or something. So we just happen to be good at a particular job.
Okay. Yeah. But the equivalent in the US would be like your SEAL Team 6 type of guys?
So SEAL Team 6, probably more the equivalent of the maritime equivalent, the SBS, Special Boat Service.
Yep.
I would say there are some crossovers between, say, the Green Berets. There's some crossover between the SAS and Delta.
Okay. Yep. So Green Beret, Delta mix.
Yeah,
in between
that sort of thing.
Yeah. Excellent.
Certainly, the guys I've worked with in both Green Berets or the what's called the ODA, Operational Detachment Alpha, and Delta. One of the things that struck me was how average they look. And that's the same with the SAS.
Yeah.
You know, we've got big, small, slightly rounder, slightly narrower. We've got all shapes, all sizes. It's what's inside that really counts.
And it's so true. Like, you know, I've known you for 10 years and even, you know, we've gone out and stuff and people that I introduce you to, you never say your former, what you've done in the past. And, you know, you don't look that typical Hollywood type of like we grew up watching Commando, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and hand grenades on the vest and blowing houses up, right?
We had a guy, one of the guys on the selection before me, and he was, I think, he had some sort of bodybuilding. He'd won some bodybuilding competition. Yeah, he was built like a silk stocking full of walnuts, a big bloke. Yeah. And the trouble is, when you start selection is the hills phase is a very specialist task. It's basically, well, say specialist, it's a very defined task. Yeah. Carry this thing a long way. Yeah. And you know, all you need is a good strong back, good strong core, good strong legs. Don't need arms. Don't need a big chest. And so over the course of about 6 months, he went from being the big I am to the big we are. He went from like we're all the same. He ended up built the same as us. He lost so much muscle mass.
So he just got conditioned.
He just conditioned to that particular job.
Yeah. Do they, when you start, is it mentally first that they break you down, or is it physically? Like a lot of these selection courses you see, because remember you're getting people that have got no experience in what they're about to do, or if they make it to that point, right? But is it the mental that they start you off, or is it the physical of preparing your body for what's about to come?
I would say it's both, because you can't do one with the other. I would contend.
So software and hardware, you need them both talking.
Absolutely,
to each other, right?
Absolutely. It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And I think I wouldn't say it's breaking down. I would say it's exposing. Okay. We chip away all that is not you to see you. Okay.
But they have a defined silhouette or a defined thing that they're trying to create?
No, that's a... yes and no, in that we're looking for the person who fits within the team, the culture, and so on. Yeah. Do we have a defined avatar? Yeah. Not really. Okay. But so you're put under pressure from day one. Yeah. And what we're looking for is the person that can handle that pressure.
So withstand it.
Because the yelling doesn't happen. There is actually, I think, nothing more unnerving than silence.
I agree on that.
Because we are used as a society to getting feedback. Yeah. You're in school, you do a drawing, the teacher says, Goran, that's lovely. Yeah. It may look like basically a bunch of scribbles, but your mum will go, Goran, that's wonderful.
You got feedback.
You get feedback, and it's always generally, it's either positive, even when it's negative, it's still feedback.
Correct.
Yeah.
But when it's quiet.
But in the SAS, you get nothing.
Wow.
And it's basically, you turn up at a checkpoint, there's no, well done, mate, you did that awfully well. Or, mate, you better get a move on, you're going a bit slowly. There's nothing, so it's just, okay, you're here, go there. And after a while, your brain starts to play funny tricks on you. You start to imagine, generally, maybe I'm not doing very well. And so the war is within yourself.
Yeah.
because you've got that I think we all have that.
We all go through that, right?
Doubting voice,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
imposter syndrome, that
Yeah.
doubt. And so I think if there was a quality that set us apart, it's our ability to control that doubting voice, and to say, I will be here at the end, and it's up to them to say whether they don't want me or not.
Yeah, so true. Well said. Now, you mentioned team. Now, you guys run a small unit. Is that correct? Is that 4-man, 6-man? Or does it vary?
It varied. Back in the day, it was we started off as a 4-man team because a lot of what we were doing was the 4-man team was ideal for that.
Yeah.
We found out it's great for concealment.
Okay.
4-man can hide in a much smaller space than 6 can, for example. But when it came to things like firepower, and also if you had someone injured, the reality is it takes muscle and a lot of it to carry an injured man.
Okay.
It's difficult, especially in the middle of a firefight. And so we over time we played with 6-man teams, 8, so on. It's whatever the job requires.
Okay.
In a vehicle, for example, you work as a 3-man team.
Okay.
You've got the driver, the commander, and the gunner. So it depends on the job.
Now, you're like a team captain or commander, or what?
I was a team commander. So I was as a sergeant. You've got one of the things the military do very well is the rank structure, and so you've got what's called commissioned officers. So they hold a commission. They are generally would be responsible for 20 to 30 men in teams. I say men in our context, the people.
Yeah.
Then you've got non-commissioned officers. They are the equivalent of the frontline leaders. But then we have this interesting concept. We've got this really, and it's a concept that works very well indeed, I find. You've got at a platoon level, so a platoon or a troop in SAS terms, we talk about a troop, which is a number of teams, all under a troop commander, an officer.
Yeah.
But they've got a troop sergeant as well. So the old analogy is that the officer talks tactics, the NCO, the sergeant talks admin.
Okay.
But there's more to it than that. The sergeant is generally the most experienced member of the troop. So it's the symbiotic relationship between the troop sergeant and troop commander, the officer, that makes it work so well. So you've got the troop boss, and traditionally in the regiment, which is what we call the SAS. In the regiment, we call the officer in charge the boss. And it's a informal but respectful way of referring to him. So rather than sir, it's boss. So you've got the boss who does tactics. That's how we're going to achieve the mission.
Okay.
And then the troop sergeant is all about the stuff, what we call the beans, bombs, and bullets, and bog roll. And so he's responsible for things like casualty evacuation, all that stuff that is necessary but is not about achieving the mission.
Okay.
That's his responsibility.
Okay.
He's also I would call the chief morale officer. And I introduced, and I love the concept of what I call the lead follower. So you've got the person in charge. And you've got the lead follower. And this works at a troop level and at a team level. The lead follower's job is to show everyone else how to follow the boss.
So like a team leader?
No, not a team leader.
Okay, so totally different. Okay.
Totally different. You've got the team leader. But there will come a time when you tell the team, traditionally in the SAS, we don't order, we just go, hey, we ask nicely. Bit of class. There will come a time when you ask your man to step out from behind a rock and run forwards towards someone who is trying to kill them. And take it from me, they'll be questioning themselves. They'll be asking themselves some big questions, like, have you thought this through? What have you done as the leader to give me the biggest, greatest, best chance of going home? That's what they're asking themselves. And whether it's in the military or in the corporate world, I am asking myself, what would you sacrifice for me? Because I've met a lot of leaders in Civvy Street who would say they would sacrifice anything, but very few of them would sacrifice their career. And so the blokes are looking at the team commander and asking themselves, is this guy a leader worth following? And there'll be times when they doubt themselves. I remember that we did a job in Afghanistan. We'd killed a guy. Well, he had tried to kill a friend of mine, so he was now dead. And his companion had run off into a compound. And the troop boss gave the orders, and it was very simple, you know, surround this complex of compounds with overwatch, so teams that would stop anyone from escaping. And then one team had to go in. Guess whose team?
You guys.
Aha, I got the job. And so we've got a bit of ground to cover. We've got 200 meters. I've got the team in dead ground. I've just given my orders and said, this is how this is going to work. And nice and casual, because we're about to go into a building to find a guy and kill him or capture him. And he's armed. And so, yeah, that's a moderately stressful situation. And so I've given my orders, and there's a big risk. We've got 200 meters of open ground to cover, and we are totally exposed. And I don't like running on a battlefield. It's very undignified.
Yeah.
Plus, the idea of getting there exhausted just doesn't really appeal. And so I thought I need to give these guys a bit of encouragement. I said, look, okay, here's my plan. Here's how it's going to work. And then I stood up. And at that point, I'm the team commander. I shouldn't be going first because I've got to be thinking of everything.
Okay.
I need a guy, but my lead scout, a fellow called Dave, he then immediately stood up and he showed the others how to follow the boss, me. He just stood up and said, hey, I'm up front.
Okay, so this is where that role plays.
That lead follower,
Yep.
and he just pushed forward and said, you're in my spot. Made some sort of joke about it, and he pushed forward and he took up his role as the lead scout. You know, so if we had hit an IED, a booby trap, he would have. We'd lost several guys to these in the past. If he'd hit an IED, you know, he'd have had about like a millisecond of euphoria and then a bright light, and be issued his wings and his heart. But he knew that I was close enough behind him that I was going to cop it as well. Okay. But he knew that because I knew that, I was going to do everything I could to make sure he didn't hit an IED. But the point is, he was the guy that showed everyone else, yep, I believe in this, let's go. Yeah. And I turned around, it was one of those very proud moments, turned around, there's the team just behind me. At that point, I knew we had an awesome team.
And that's one of my questions, is because at the end of the day, this is life and death, what you guys are doing. Right?
Yeah.
In the corporate world, you get a second chance, right? Here, you don't have a second chance. Like you said, right, you got a split millisecond. Something happens, could be life or death, right? Yeah. So you've got this team that follows you into whatever decision that you give them, or whatever you tell them to do, into fire. They'll follow you straight through, right?
Yeah.
But saying that, do they question, or is it purely because you've got that bond and trust that no matter what you say, like what you said, if run through that field, they'll just run through. There's no debate about it.
Yeah, so leaders have to invest time in their teams. You cannot expect a new team to perform at the same level. You're familiar with the Tuckman stages, forming, storming, performing. I put the time and effort into forming the team. Yep. Now, did we have our rub points? Absolutely. Okay. In fact, one of the guys that I rubbed against, that we had friction the most, is now one of my very close friends. Okay. Because he raised grievances, and I could have said, we're doing it my way because let's play the game of paper, rock, rank. Yep. Okay, tell me. And in the grand scheme of things, it was a relatively trivial issue. But I think and we talked about it over a few drinks one night, and he said, the fact is you listened. Okay. The fact is I vented and you listened. And that mattered. And so you have to invest during the easy times, because there will be tough times, and it's what you have done in those easy times that really matters. So one of the reasons why leadership is so difficult is because I've heard that old trope about turning managers into leaders. It's utter crap. You need managers, you need leaders. But the reason why we're getting it wrong in the corporate world is because we think it's a two-sided coin. It's not, it's a three-sided. If you have a three-sided coin, it would be a bit weird. Leadership, or what we call command in the military, I know command in the civilian world has a bit of a command and control kind of thing to it, but the act of being placed in charge of an organization or a group or whatever, we call it leadership in the corporate world, we call it command in the military world. It's three things. You've got three jobs. I call it the ABCs. Achieve the mission, build the team, cultivate the individual. And there's no magic formula to which one should take primacy. That is one of those things you only learn by getting it wrong every so often. Because there comes a time when the team has to sacrifice the late nights and so on and so forth to achieve the mission.
Correct.
There comes a time when you need to take time away from the mission to build the team. And there comes a time when you actually need to spend time with the individual. Hey, Goran, I've noticed you don't seem yourself today. What's going on? There may even come a time when you have to, with compassion and courage, let someone follow another path. And one of the things we feared the most in the SAS and Special Forces in general was not death, it was letting our mates down. In fact, that to us was the biggest fear, was that point at which we let the team down. And I've seen guys try and cling on a day more than they should have done. The greatest act of friendship in that world was telling someone, I reckon you've been at the sharp end too long. Maybe it's time to take another role, like mentoring, training, whatever. But I think your day was yesterday, because you can't do that job forever. And so this idea of cultivating the individual, sometimes someone doesn't fit. There's a beautiful theory. I don't know where I found it from. It was the idea of being a +1, a 0, or a -1. Are you someone that adds to the team? Are you someone that just kind of neither adds nor detracts? Or do you detract, -1?
I like that.
And the trouble is, we get it wrong. Because everyone wants to, from the outset, be a +1.
Correct.
You can't. There's a time just to shut up and be a 0. And be comfortable being a 0. Just don't make my life difficult. In fact, the first job I ever did with the regiment, I remember that the team commander, Gareth, the driest human being I've ever, if the Sahara could be a human, it was Gareth. And he just said, right, I don't need any hassle on this one. And looking at me and the other new guy, and I thought, yeah, okay, I get exactly what my assignment is. Just
get it done.
Carry the weight, carry the stuff, watch my arc, as in sort of cover where I've got to point my weapon where I've got to point my weapon, and don't make his life any more difficult than it already is. And I get it. Whereas people come into that environment, especially when people come into a high-performing team that's already doing very well, your natural instinct is to try and match speed.
Yes, correct.
And you can't. And so you've got to be okay, and the team leader's got to make it okay to be a 0. To say, you guys, this is what I expect from you. I don't expect you to be here, I expect you to be there, and if you find yourself dipping, just do something about it. And so that's okay, and because when you try and be a +1 right from the get-go, you can end up being a -1 and making the team leader's job and the team's job more difficult. Or you can have people who just don't fit. And believe me,
there's a lot of
any team, you do a private survey of everyone, they will tell you who the deadwood is. They'll tell you who the people who are the -1s. We all know who they are. And what they're doing is watching you as the team leader to see what you do about them. And they will judge you on that. Because if you're not taking decisive action about this -1, that means they have to carry them. They're carrying your failure as a leader.
Incredible. I really like that, the +1, the 0, and the -1. One question I've got is, I've watched videos on room clearing, right? And where the question is, it's not about the tactics, it's purely the trust that 4-man team has, right? Because from what I've watched, you've got a primary person up front, you've got a guy behind, you've got a guy watching your back, watching your 6, left and right, whatever it is from that end. But the absolute trust that person that plays its role, let's say it's front, they're only watching their front, so they never have to watch their back.
There is a high degree of trust, and you have to go slow to go fast. And so you have to go slow to learn and they learn the job. I would say it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but you're right, there's a huge amount of trust, but it's a bit more nuanced because as soon as you become fixated on that's my job, just that, room clearance, room combat has been likened to playing three-dimensional Tetris with humans. It's because it's especially in larger buildings, it's a three-dimensional threat. You've got threats up high, threats sometimes down low, and all around, and the natural instinct of the body tends to fixate on an area. You've got to force yourself to be looking around. It's about recognizing if you and I are doing the same job, then one of us is redundant. You've never got enough manpower to be doing the same job. And so if you and I are both covering sort of that way, one of us should be doing something else. And so it's about having the flexibility to recognize that, or I see a gap there, fill it in. When it's done well, it's a flow state. It's an incredible state. You walk out, you're carrying a lot of weight. You've got body armor, you've got magazines, you've got breaching gear, you've got tools, you've got explosives, you've got a lot of stuff that can ruin everyone's day, or get the party started. And you're crouched over in this hunch. We started every day with yoga. It got to the point because your back was so sore on some days, and yet you've got the gas mask, the respirator. And if you're having a wind up with your mates, you cover the air intake hole with tape. That's always a good one. But you're running through the rain. You're climbing stairs. You're dragging people around in the case of hostages and so on. And when it's going well, you don't notice. It is so literally you're in that flow state. Nothing
Everyone
matters.
just does their role.
It's incredible. Yeah.
But you guys are all trained to do each other's roles, right? So if something happens to one, you can take that position on.
Yeah. Yep. It's a beautiful concept of it's leaderless until big decisions need to be made, and then we've got this this mantra that if you do stuff up aggressively, and then sort it out, because it's such a fluid state of affairs that to centralize control and make every decision the team commander's decision just doesn't work.
Too hard, right?
There are decisions that have to be made at that level. Yes, absolutely, but it's a very fluid way of working.
Because every house, every compound is going to be different, right? So
and so, but building that level of trust in each other, and also, but you do also need a plan as well. You can't just go and sort of boom, in we go, and just see what happens. Obviously, sometimes that happens. But it does require, it's a high level of training with each other to build that trust in each other and to just to get the vibe, if you like, to get to the point where you've dialed it in, you've locked it in.
And fear, right? So we've gone with like mindset, you know, the questions. So one of my questions I've got is fear. Is that something that can be overcome? Like, is that something that in your missions or what you've been going every single time you'd be, you know, you've got that fear, or does it get to a point where it's another day?
I think anyone that says they're not scared or doesn't experience fear is lying. There are, for me, fear manifested in different ways. There was, for example, I spent the night waiting for 400 Taliban to arrive. It was, we were on the Pakistan border, and we'd had a number of successes. We'd intercepted a significant amount of drugs, weapons, money, Taliban commanders. I think we were generally pissing them off. We were making our presence felt. And we even got a nice new vehicle out of it as well. And the Taliban commanders in Pakistan decided that this was not okay. We were wandering around on their turf, kind of going, "We're here, come on." We were goading them because we were trying to make it clear that we ran this area, and we did. And word got to us. I remember I was half asleep. I was just drifting off to sleep, and my friend Pat. I remember Pat waking me up for that half asleep state, which was weird. And I remember because I was half asleep, my immediate thought was Pat's got his head on upside down. The reason being because he's totally bald but with a big beard.
Yeah.
Why has Pat got his head on upside down? And he's going, hey, Adam, just want to get you up. Yeah, we've just got word that there's 400 Taliban on the way to kill us. I thought, oh, that's good, because there's 13 of us. And so we convened at this police outpost, and there's only so much prep you can do. You know, you sight the weapons in, you prepare reference points so that you can easily, it's what's called target indication. So rather than going out there somewhere, you nominate reference points and give them a name, okay. So that everyone sees them. And so in the middle of a firefight, all you've got to say is reference lone building. Yep. Boom, everyone knows what you're talking about, okay. And that you can then use that to direct fire. Yep. We had support from the overhead gunships. Okay. Yeah, we had a lot of new friends. So there comes a time when sleep is the best weapon. All you can do is just get your head down. And yeah, that was an interesting night because you've got a lot of time to reflect. And I thought about it, and I realised the only dying. Yeah, wasn't looking forward to it, but if it happened, it happened. But what really my nervousness came from. Will I let my mates down? Because I was working with the Dutch Special Forces at that point. I didn't know them that well. I'd become good friends with some of them, and but still didn't want to let them down. Yeah. But you can use it to you can either dwell on that, or you can ask a better question, which is, what is there left for me to do that has not been done, yeah, that would make life better for us? And eventually you get to the point where nothing apart from get some sleep. Yeah. And you can, it's a way of turning it into a positive.
Yeah. A process of elimination, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Eliminate everything you can, and at a point now, just got to get some sleep.
And then also, I think being mindful, recognizing, yeah, feeling fear. Breathing is a very powerful tool. We use a concept called square breathing, breathing in slowly, holding, breathing out. It allows us to get control of emotions that are running away. And then you can start to focus on, okay, I'm with the best equipped, best trained special forces in country. I've got more air assets than any other force in this entire country. We are better equipped, we are better trained, et cetera, et cetera. You can focus on the things you need to focus on and go, you know what, I think I can sleep okay. Yeah. Having said that, there are some things you can't control. I was on another job in Central Africa. I was watching a terrorist training camp, and I became aware at some point that I was in the observation post and I was not alone. I turned out that I was sharing it with a rather large and rather unpleasant looking snake.
Oh shit.
And I hate snakes. I've never liked them. I have no idea why I ever chose to live in Australia.
Everybody does.
And I'm lying there watching this training camp. My job is to watch for a particular event. If we as a team miss that event happening, the whole operation is ruined. Wow. Because it all depends on seeing this one event. And I've got a job to do. And I'm tried compartmentalism of fear. It's just, I've got a 6-foot snake about 1.5 feet from my face. And I thought, that's just not working. So we were working in those days. We worked as a 6-man team. So we always had someone watching the target, yep, and someone watching the rear. Cool. And we have a bit of string between the two groups. So, and we've got the comms cord. So I tug on the comms cord. Yeah. And Mick answers, "What's up?" I said, Mick, I need a stick. And he goes, what? I need a stick. Yeah. Why? Because I'm sharing the OP with a snake. Yeah. And I remember the expression on his face. He turned and he said, oh, what sort? I thought, if you're that fucking interested, come and have a look. But bring a stick.
Yeah.
And so I told that story to a girl I was actually, the girl I then met, I had met on Everest, and I told her this story, and she decides she's going to help me cure this fear of snakes.
Yep.
And we're at the rainforest habitat in Port Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
And she has arranged for someone to drape a 6-foot python around my neck while I'm having a cup of coffee.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
And I am having a cup of coffee, thinking, yeah, I'm living my best life. And all of a sudden, there's this python around my neck. I thought, and it's looked at me, and I've looked at it, and I think understandably, grabbed it and tried to strangle it. And it's thought, well, stuff that, you have some too. It's tried to strangle me as well. And the poor old snake's having a really bad day. I'm not enjoying it either. And the handler, at this point, all I've focused on is this snake. And the handler goes, it's okay, he's just really friendly. And it doesn't feel like it for me. You just got to let go. Well, make it let go first. It doesn't work like that. I thought, okay, got time to do some of that fear stuff. Breathe in, breathe out. Okay, what do I know to be true? It's not venomous. It's not going to kill me. It's only 6 foot.
So you play those things through your mind, right?
And I literally had to get control of this fear, brought my heart rate down, and I went to my calm place. And I actually kind of liked it. Well, I kind of enjoyed it after that. It's lying on my arm, it's doing the old tongue thing, which tickled a bit, but it's not so bad.
So you got out of that. No, it's a good way to explain.
So it does work.
Yeah. Elephant, I want to understand.
Yes. So that was the same job in Africa, and we when we what's called marry up, so you get different call signs or different teams coming together. We have a process for doing that. Because when you're in a country or in an area that's got, should we call it, non-permissive, or in other words, people out there are not friendly, you've got to be really careful, because in the dark, a good guy with a gun looks very similar to a bad guy with a gun. Okay. And so we've got a protocol, which I won't describe, for how we bring those teams together safely and minimizing the risk of what we call blue on blue, like friendly fire. Okay. So I'm not going to tell, I won't talk about what it is, but there is a process and it works. It's been tried and tested and refined. And so we're waiting, and because we've got a time window to come through to meet the main body of troops. So we've got some time to kill. And I'm sitting there, I'm on sentry, or as we call it, on stag. So 5 guys asleep, or just getting their head down, and me sitting there just watching life go by, thinking, I can't believe I get paid to do this. I'm sitting in the beautiful the African evening, there's a gentle breeze, life is good. And there's even I heard of elephants, even better. Wow, like being on safari, this is awesome. And then as I turned slightly, and I felt this gentle breeze on my cheek, and a little red light went off in my head, and I thought, ooh, we've been out for an awfully long time, we stink, and we're upwind. And so I woke the guys up and just said, hey guys, be aware, large elephants moving from our left to right, and we're upwind. And they've gone, yeah, whatever. They're exhausted, they need sleep, yeah, whatever. And just as I've said, well, okay, don't say I didn't warn you. Yeah. At that precise moment, this, I reckon, would have been a 30, 40-foot tree has just collapsed. And this rather pissed off mummy elephant has come charging through. And I will not try and emulate the sound, because it never goes well. But I've never seen 5 blokes get out of the sleeping bag so fast in my life. Because we were armed with 5.56, which is a very small round. It's it'll kill a man, but it will piss off an elephant. And we have done the only thing possible, which is run. Yep. And we have sprinted. And of course, it's one of those things, one of those races. You don't need to win; you just don't want to come last. And we are just hurtling like a little body of 6 blokes, just clawing each other out of the way, just that way, as fast as possible.
But you left all your gear, right?
We left everything, because this elephant was pretty much, the year before it had caught an elephant in roughly the same area, had caught a member of another special forces unit, and that guy hadn't survived.
Sure.
So we'd been given a briefing about that. So yeah, that thought, when it's going through your mind, you find a little bit of extra speed and strength.
Just run.
You just
it's
run.
less gear.
Yeah, and your gear was just going to slow us down. We have just sprinted, and eventually, after what seemed like about running for an hour, probably like 2 minutes, we've stopped. Yeah, we were, well, to say I was breathing heavily, whenever I breathed in, the trees moved. And the boss goes, right, where's the elephant? I had we only had 2 night vision goggles in the team. I had one of them. And he's going, right, Adam, go and recce, do a reconnaissance of the site. What? Why me? He goes, well, you're on sentry. Strictly speaking, I finished about 2 minutes ago. And he goes, just go and have a look. Yeah. And it was something from Keystone Cops. I would go from scrub, from bush to bush, and check with the night vision goggle, and go to the next one, have a check. And behind me there'd be 3 or 4 little SAS soldiers going, is it there? Is it still there? I looked, and between us, I think we had 6 of us. We had 5 rifles and 11 boots, because one guy had been. We never take both boots off. We only ever take one off at a time. And he had he'd taken off, and just because there was 6 of us all scrambling, his weapon had been knocked out of his hand, and his boot as well. So I thought, sucks to be you, because the bushes, there's these little thorns that fall in such a way that there's always a spike uppermost. Yep. And I thought, oh, sucks to be you. So we got back, and the elephant it trampled our gear, gave it a bit of a. To be honest, it was just as if the instructors had been through our billet during training, where they trash your room. It just looked like that. We got our stuff together and left the area pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, good story. So, what are you working on these days? So, what are you focusing on?
Well, because I blended 2 careers. I had a pretty interesting and successful IT career that I would quite literally put on hold every so often. I'd get a call saying, "Hey, we're having a war. Do you want to come?" And I would literally put my career on hold to the point where I realised that I was probably not the world's best employee. I would have been a pain in the ass, because literally I get a call and there'd be an exercise overseas. Hey boss, I'm off. Luckily, he was ex-forces, so he was very understanding, and it was a big company, IBM. So you know, they could wear the loss for a while, but eventually he did say, "It's not working, is it?" And it was time to move on, and so I did. But I started looking at, okay, what do I know? And I realised that life. I had learnt about leadership from some of the best teachers in the world, and in some of the harshest classrooms as well. Now there's not much call for being able to shoot a bad guy between the eyes, on the move, in the dark, etc. in civilian employment. But the leadership, the planning, the direction, giving people tasks in such a way that they become empowered to carry those out, that is very, very relevant. So as well as cybersecurity, so I now run a cybersecurity consulting practice. I've got a cybersecurity software company that's in startup mode. I also run an organization called High Caliber Teams, and the program that I run there is what I call Expert 2.0. So it's helping. I went from being technical nerd, great at technology, awful at humans. I would probably say I was a nightmare to work for and with in the early stages of my career, because I just didn't get the human operating system. And I think successive events kind of opened me up to the fact that it was working with other people, and I learnt a huge amount about what I call the human operating system, and how to equip it and empower it to get the best results out of a team. Yeah. So High Caliber Teams is all about that. It's taking what I learnt in the Special Forces, blending it with what I know about I'll call them knowledge workers, so highly technical workers, and bringing those two skill sets together to turn experts into valuable SMEs, to help them become better at what they do, be themselves but better.
Yep. Excellent. And how do people contact you?
Well, I'm sure you'll put my details in down at the just there.
Put it in the link below.
Adam at highcaliberteams.com, or the website is highcaliberteams.com.au.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll put all the details in the description below. Anything else you'd like to share?
I think, look, leadership is tough. And I think the one thing I will say is that unfortunately we've made leadership a popularity contest, and everyone wants to be the leader until it's time to do leadership stuff. There are times that you will have to make difficult and tough and unpleasant decisions, and if you shy away from those, then you have not just failed your team, you've failed yourself. And I think we have to prepare leaders to be lonely, and we haven't done it very well in the corporate world. We have mentoring programs, but the ones I've seen so far have been pale, male, stale circle jerks, which is not a nice visual, but mentoring is a skill, coaching is a skill.
Agreed.
And we don't develop those skills enough. Giving people mentors who are close enough to every level of management and leadership has different challenges.
Yep.
And so giving someone who's at the top of the tree the job of mentoring someone who is just moving from line leadership or sort of being an employee to being a supervisor, in my opinion, that's the hardest leap of all. To go from being one of the troops to being the person responsible for other people, that's the toughest leadership transition you will ever make. And yet we don't invest in those people.
Yeah. But also, like, from mentors or people that we learn from, you want to learn from people that are either doing it at the highest level or have done it at the highest level.
Yeah.
Right? And Arnold Schwarzenegger says the best, right? Because the majority of people go to the gym and they hire a PT.
Yep.
But if you want to build muscle, go find the biggest PT. Or find the person that you want to be, somebody that's been there, done it, or is currently in that shape or form that you want to be in, and then take advice from them.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, what we do is we're taking advice from people that have never performed or have got experience in that field.
Yeah.
And then we give up and we go, well, it's not for me, or
Absolutely. That's why I like what I'm doing, because it combines those two great loves of mine, like getting the most out of teams and technology. It's why I literally come to work thinking, this is awesome. Another day at the office, great. Because you spend a lot of your time at work. It makes sense. It makes sense. You should go home. Okay, we can't go home buzzing, having cured cancer every day, but you can go home going, I enjoyed that. I did a TED talk years ago, and as a result of that, I got a call from a company, and I'll name them Grain Corp, because I was so impressed. And I met with their chief ops officer, and it was one of those meetings for a coffee that turned into 3 coffees, because the conversation just flew a bit like this. Couldn't sleep for a week afterwards, but it was a great conversation. And he said something that really resonated with me. And he said, as a leader, his mantra, which I realized had been mine, he just put it into words: send them home better than you found them.
It's really
if
good.
you're not doing that, you're failing as a leader.
Yeah, that is really
And it's, he said it in the context of health and safety. He said, too many organizations, it's been 300 days since our last injury and so on. He said, that's a race to the bottom. He said, I want our leaders to send everyone home better than they found them, which means keeping them alive is no longer the target, it's the baseline.
Yeah.
But whether you engage with high energy, with low energy, whether they're low or high energy, there's different techniques for those different scenarios. But it can be as little as, hey, how's it going? Love what you're doing. Appreciate it. And not just a blind sort of, hey mate, you're looking really good. It's the way you handled that issue was really, really, it was brilliant. It was compassionate, it was firm, but it was clear. Get better at giving feedback, because nobody wants to hear that you're doing really well.
Yeah.
That sucks.
There's no energy in that.
There's none.
From a leadership point of view, can everybody become a leader? And if not, is that something that people should be taught in that skill? Is it a skill that you'd want to have in your toolbox?
Yeah. So I said earlier on about a leader has 3 jobs,
Yep.
the ABC: achieve the mission, build the team, cultivate the individual. Across those 3, if you like, pillars, there are 3 transverse disciplines. There's making decisions, providing direction, and providing inspiration or inspiring. Now, the challenge is to be a well-rounded leader, we need to be good at all of them, all 3: direction,
Yep.
providing, delegating, and providing a clear idea of what is to be achieved, and then giving purpose, inspiring with purpose, and so on and so forth. I think we should aspire to excel and improve in all of them, but the reality is some people are better. We'll always have a weak spot. Some people, for example, making decisions is an intellectual exercise. Coordination is all about the giving you a clear communication, giving you a clear idea of what your task is. Here's the constraints. Here's the logistics. Here's the resources I can give you. Here's the reporting I need, and so on and so forth. That's boxing a task, and so on. Having made decisions, I give the task to you. Making it inspiring or inspiring the team, that's something else. Some people can be really good at inspiring, but make completely bad decisions. Some people can be really good at management, but just be completely unable to inspire. They're very dry in the delivery and so on. A good plan communicated poorly has a pretty odds-on chance of failing, whereas a bad plan or average plan communicated with passion, with clarity, and so on, sometimes it can actually work. So we can't be good. We're very rarely are we awesome at all 3 things. So we can do one of 2 things. We can either focus on something we're not good at, and most people that I meet are not particularly good at the communication of tasks. They're pretty good at making people feel useful, valued, and so on. That I've met some who aren't. But you can either focus very, very hard on your weaknesses, and you might get a little bit of improvement, or you can find someone to work with that counterbalances you. I think there's a very good reason why the motto of Sandhurst, the Royal Military Academy, which is where we train officers, is serve to lead. From the minute you enter that institution, you are reminded that you are there to serve, and it is not about you; it's about we. It's about the team, and so I think. Unfortunately, leadership has become an ego thing, I think, in modern culture, where I must be awesome at everything. Sometimes your job as a leader is to actually say, I don't know how to do this, I want you to help. I think...
There's a lot of pride in that, right? Putting your hand up and saying, look, I don't know, can you show me? Or how would you like me to do it? Can you show me how you want me to do it?
I had a very inspiring man. He was a major, so he was responsible for, he was a squadron commander at one point. And he was dyslexic. Now, I've read things that he wrote, and you have to actually read them aloud and try and get a handle on what he was saying. He was a very inspiring individual. He was exceptionally good at verbal communication. Brilliant at making you feel part of this organization. Just a lovely guy. Very, very good at making decisions. His written word was awful. He had to get people to help him write that. But he was very, very successful in life outside the regiment. He was very successful because he recognized, I can talk off the cuff about anything. I can't write. So he got someone else to do it for him.
So he knew his strengths and weaknesses,
absolutely,
right? But like a lot of people in business, and you probably heard the saying, right? Identify your weaknesses and then hire people that are better at it, or stronger at it, or capable of doing that element instead of, like what you said, just focusing on the weakness, right? Identify it and get somebody else to do what they're really good at.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I'm going to describe. I'm going to ask you. I've given you some feedback, or you've overheard me talking to someone about you, and I've said, in that instant, in that moment, Goran was, and I use a word to describe you, and it cuts you. Absolutely, it's feedback or it's a description about your behaviour that cuts you to the bone. You're left thinking, oh my God,
Gutted.
Like,
Yep.
wow, because you take feedback from me seriously. So
Yep.
what would that word be?
Incompetent.
Absolutely. Okay.
Because I've let you down, I've let myself down.
Let me tell you what it is. I do this. I ask this question to a lot of audiences I speak to the point where I know what the answer will be. And in the corporate world, it is incompetent. To the point where I actually have a slide, because I know what it will be.
So you preempt it.
In the military world, the word is Jack.
Oh.
To be called Jack in the military world is like, you let the team down. You put yourself first. To be called Jack is like, we even had if I went and got a cup of tea and came back and sat down beside you, you'd go, oh, how does that Jack tea taste? Oh, does Jack tea taste better than ordinary tea?
So that's the word.
It's the
but
word.
Is that because Jack just means, it's just a word?
It's just a
or
word,
is it just Jack's incompetent or not capable?
No,
or?
it's Jack. Is
Okay.
Like to Jack is to let your mates carry the load.
Okay, cool.
Like, you know,
So they can all relate to it the minute you say.
We've got to pack all the stuff away.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got some admin to do over there. Yeah. So you're letting your team carry the weight, and it's possibly the worst insult in the regiment. It's one of the worst insults, but it's got a light side and a dark side, because if you to you the idea of being called incompetent is pain, utter pain. Two things happen. One, you will have one thing happens, but in two ways. You will avoid situations where you can be called that.
Yep.
Now, I know you well. I know you to be the sort of guy that would go, right, I don't know this. I will either get better at it, or I'll find someone who is good and I'll get them to teach me or do it for me. Yeah. Because that's when you're turning up in above what I would call above the line. Yeah. Or you can go below the line, which is I will either not try, or I will make sure that there is someone else to share the blame, or I'll pass the blame, or it wasn't my fault. Unfortunately, a lot of the corporate culture is below the line and is very good at saying it's not my fault, or I said I'd try, I didn't say I'd do. Like getting people to actually say, you know what, I stuffed up, I made a mistake, got it wrong, is very rare. So it's you can turn up above the line into a positive. It can turn into a positive, or you can be below the line where it's a negative. It's the same as Jack. You know, Jack. You can turn up above the line where it's, you know what, I will make sure that if I'm going for if I'm doing something, I'm looking to see are my mates struggling, or below the line, I can work so hard and carry so much of the load that I actually I neglect my health, I neglect my family, and so on, to the point where I'm no use to the team. I can run myself into the ground trying to not be seen as Jack.
Yeah, that's really good. I really liked it. Look, I'm a character that if I don't know, I don't know. I don't make it up. I'm very clear. I put my hand up. Make a mistake, right? But my strength, you know, everyone's got a superpower. Mine's problem solving.
Yep.
So I try not to leave it to chance, right? So I'll visualize. I'll play the different movies. Like even for today, preparing, right?
Yep.
I'm going for all the different scenarios. What do we need? What do we get to set up? Have time. If this happens, that happens, this happens. So what you're doing is you're minimizing risk, right? And in the event, you've eliminated as much as you can. Something happened. It's happened, right?
But you wear it.
You wear it. You learn from it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you add it into your toolbox and what can I do next time to make sure I cover that part. Now, does that mean that we create a process or we create a checklist for it? How do we, what do I do? And then do I need to share that with others?
One of the best questions, I like questions, because questions inspire thinking. And one of the best questions a leader can ask in the event of a stuff up, what was my role in your stuff up? And being realistic, was it that I communicated unclearly? Was it that I should have checked in earlier to make sure that you're on the right track and so on, et cetera, et cetera. But being honest with each other. There are times when, quite frankly, you just stuffed up. You made a mistake.
Correct. happens.
It happens, and I think that's the point. I spoke earlier on about leaders demonstrating in the easy times how they will turn up in the hard times. If I make a mistake, it's easy as a leader to walk in and say, "Guys, there's no mistakes, just feedback and results and learnings.
Yeah.
I want you to make mistakes."
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of going, "You first."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Someone take the lead.
Yeah. I made an absolute colossal mistake once in my IT world, and again, this is something that the military, I think, honed in me, this idea of taking responsibility. I brought down an entire national network for 4 hours.
Wow.
For a company that should remain nameless, but they were not happy.
That was a long time ago, right?
A long time
recent.
ago. Yes, a long time ago. Yeah. Statute of limitations passed. And it's they couldn't take bookings, they couldn't replenish their stores, they couldn't, etc. For about 4 hours, it was not good. And
didn't save the config, the running config.
no, I forced through a change with no checks.
Okay.
And I said,
So no
of course I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I learned a lot that day.
Yeah.
And I got home that evening to, I think, 13 missed calls from the same number, and you think, well, that's never good. Yeah. We got it fixed. It was a simple back out the change, done. Yeah. But the next day, I thought, that was me alone. I broke the process. Yeah. I forced it. And I thought, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Major, the massive one of the biggest customers this organisation had. And so I did the only thing that I felt my integrity would allow, which was I submitted my resignation.
Okay.
And I took full responsibility for what happened. I said there was no one else. In fact, this individual did ask the question, and I forced it past. I said, I used my authority in a way that was not okay. And I said, responsibility is mine alone, and you have my resignation. Yep. I got a call from the senior manager,
which is very honourable. What you've done, right to that point.
I didn't feel I had a choice.
Yep.
And he said, "Tell me this: have you learnt your lesson?" I said, "Oh yes." He said, "Because I finally found someone who's prepared to make mistakes, to try and make progress, and own the mistakes." Yeah. He said, "You're not going anywhere." Yeah, there you go. I had a few drinks a few weeks later with the CIO of the customer affected, and yes, I had to eat humble pie for a while, and he did take the piss out of me, and we did laugh about it. Yeah. We ended up having got quite drunk together, and he said, "Okay, I'd rather you didn't do it again, but the fact that you took full responsibility. He said, I saw the letter. And I said, that's impressive."
But it's human nature. People can relate, right? And if you're honest, it's an honest mistake. Yeah. People can relate with that, right? It's logical, right? Or emotional, however you position it from that point.
And yet, I remember I was working with an organisation. I won't name them for obvious reasons. They were doing a lot of projects in the IT space, and their standard approach, if the project went off the rails, was to fire the project manager.
Wow.
And projects that came to the project steering boards or steering committees and project boards, I don't think we've realised that they have a responsibility to ask the tough questions, to shine the light into the dark corners, to see what others can't see, and to say what others are afraid to say. And as a result, I see a lot of project boards asleep at the wheel and not taking responsibility. And then when things go wrong, it's the project manager's fault. And again, it comes back to, what was my role in your mistake?
I also, with my guys, when I hire people, I've got people, always ask them, what can I do to help you? Mm-hmm. What tools do you need? What training do you need? What do you need? What can I do to help you? Because then what that does is avoids, then they can't turn around and say, well, if you gave me that laptop, if you gave me that screwdriver, if I had that hammer, I could have done X, Y, and Z, right? So where it's really, what can I do? What do you need? What tools do you need to succeed?
Well, one of the things that I mentioned my Expert 2.0 program. One of the things I help techies and people, highly algorithmic people, to do is to actually express it in terms that matters to you. Yeah. Because it's one thing to say, you ask me what I need, I say, I need a thing. I need a sonic screwdriver.
Yep.
And you go, okay, you have a sonic screwdriver. But the next question should be, for what purpose?
Correct.
Or
Why
for what reason?
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Well, because my friend's got one. But it's helping me to think in terms of that matter to you.
Yeah.
Well, Goran, it's because it's taking me 1 hour. Whenever I do this task, it takes me 1 hour at the start, 1 hour at the end. If I had this sonic screwdriver, it'll take me 5 minutes,
okay. So it's
and
efficiency.
with a much less risk of damaging or stripping the threads, for example.
Correct. Yep.
And that converts to terms that you care about, which is time, money, quality, customer satisfaction, and so on. As opposed to, I just like it because it makes a cool noise.
Yeah, correct. No, 100%, right. It's you said the why, what's the purpose?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One last question I've got is like, with your team, like you said, 4-man, 6-man team, every person's a specialist, right?
Yeah.
You guys have got common skills, so you can take over different things if you need to, but I would assume each person plays a critical role to do a certain task, or is specialized in a certain task.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're all qualified across a range of skills.
Yep.
And so the close combat, room combat, combat first aid, etc., etc., etc. So
they're the baseline skills.
Baseline of skills.
Yep.
But then, as soon as you join, you join the squadron, you're into your specialist skills, and at that point, you're into say patrol medic training. Which is pretty advanced. It's everything from gunshot wounds to pregnancies and so on. You're into demolitions, blowing stuff up, and it's a lot of fun. Improvised explosives and so on. To communications. Generally in the regiment, everyone is a skilled communicator.
Okay.
Because I love what Schwarzkopf said. He said, without communications, all I command is my desk. And the radio is, it's what gets us the help we need.
Yeah.
Because if I can't communicate with the aircraft, guess what? I'm walking home.
Yeah.
So communication's hugely important. That's probably the core skill for us.
So communication is key, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, and learning to communicate effectively. Okay. Some useful analogies there. And then there's other skills as well, like learning to talk to aircraft, to direct them onto target. That's a specialist skill in itself. We've got linguists, so people, again, nothing helps build rapport more than being able to speak someone's language.
Okay. Yep.
And so being able to speak even just a few words that get by really helps.
Yeah, breaks the ice.
And then there's a whole bunch of other skills as well that you pick up along the way. Yep. Like tactical questioning, even being able to talk to people. You're not interrogating them. You're just asking questions to try and derive what we call human intelligence.
Yep. But you know how some people in real life, corporate world, whatever we want to call it, let's call it corporate world instead of real life, they mumble and bumble around to get their point. Mm-hmm. I would assume in what you guys do, it's using those words wisely and effectively, right? Because you've got seconds.
Absolutely.
Right, so we haven't got a whole story to tell. It's just, I need this at this, right? Mm-hmm. Get to the point is probably the best way I want to say to it. And I'm that type of character, I've become that character, it's just get to the point. What do you need from me? Or what can I do to help you? I
think we use a very standardized briefing format. We call it SMEAC, situation, mission, execution, admin and log, and command and signals. Yeah. And it's done that way because it structures thinking. I know when things are coming. I know that during the situation, there's no point asking about where I'm going to get fed, because that will come in logistics or admin. Yeah. And there's no point asking what my role is, because I know that will come in execution. Yeah. So I remember in my early days as a team commander, I started giving a set of orders, and the squadron commander sat in and he said, Adam, if this doesn't get better in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to give you 30 minutes to go away and rethink your plan, because I wasn't communicating it very well. And so I took a bit of a breather, a glass of water, a cup of tea, and lent into it, and I thought, you know what, it's a good plan. I know how to do this, and sold it. It's a sales pitch as much as anything else.
But you
You're
got to
selling
believe it, right?
You got.
And if you don't believe in it, the tonality's not there, the body language isn't there.
The first sale is to yourself.
Yep, correct.
And that comes through in your voice. We also communicate over radio. You're giving people orders over radio. Every word has to have meaning. So we can't do the whole, if you don't mind, would you mind? Think about it. It's very precise and very, it's not rigid. Humor can come out, and the best commanders, I think, bring their humanity out. Even in the confines of a framework, there can still be humor. And it works. It's been tried. It's effective. Yeah. And you do become very good, especially at what we call a situation report, a sit rep. And I also do work in crisis management and crisis leadership, helping our organisations. There's always a mismatch between the executive team and the frontline team who are doing the work, teaching them to talk to each other, and so teaching technical teams to communicate effectively up the chain is crucial. And I use three very simple mantras. Tell me what you know, tell me what you don't know, tell me what you think. In that order.
Yeah, well.
And because my teams always know that's what I'm going to ask them, they come prepared for that. Yep. But it stops, it allows conjecture. I want to know the facts. Yeah. Confirmed facts, not I want to know rumor. It's I want to know facts. So be prepared for me to ask you how you know that fact. Tell me what you know. Tell me what you don't know, and tell me why you don't know it.
That's really good.
And if it's because I couldn't be bothered going and finding out, and think again, sunshine. And then tell me what you think. Give me the benefit of your experience in this world, and tell me what you think, because you're closer to this than I am.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's really good. It's really good how you break it down so simply that everyone can relate to it, right?
Mm-hmm. And it works, and it means that you're not getting conjecture, you're not getting rumor, you're getting cold hard fact, and you're using all the brains that you've hired, as opposed to just you tell me what and I'll make the decision. You actually, I would expect you to come with, okay, Adam, here's the situation. What I don't know is this. What I think we should do is the situation. I think is this. I think we should do this. Go on, like your plan, make it happen. Yeah. You've done the thinking for me.
No, really, really good. And on that note, if anybody's interested in Adam's services, mentorship, leadership, and any of the training, I'll put all the information down below. Please contact him. He's very, very good at what he does. He's results driven. Highly recommend him. And if you like this video, please subscribe, like, and comment. And maybe what we'll do is in the future we'll set up another one, because me and you can go on for hours, and there's some really good nuggets that people can relate to and they can learn from this as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And Adam, thanks for coming on board. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Thanks.